Hi, this is Anil with a video tutorial for the YouTube channel Learning Light on C programming. So in this tutorial I'm going to teach you how we can detect and clear the read and write errors in C. So for that purpose we're going to use two functions. One is called ferror and another one is called clearerr. So when we normally read or write to a file, there is the possibility of errors like unable to read from the file or unable to write to the file. For example, if you're gonna open the file in read mode and if you try to write to the file, it's gonna result in error. So once that error occurs, it's gonna set some error flags. What we are doing is we are using this ferror function and passing the file pointer to that function, and it's gonna check whether any error flags have set. If it is so, then it's gonna indicate us that there is some file read or write errors. So first we're gonna see the syntax of these two functions, and then we're gonna see how we can use these functions in our program. So this ferror function as a parameter takes the file pointer and then it returns some integer value. If this return value is 0, which is gonna mean that the last file operation, which is read or write, has not produced any error. If the return value is a non-zero value, then it's gonna mean that there was some errors in the last read or write operation. So once a read or write error has occurred, the particular error flags have set. If we use this ferror function again and again, pass the same file pointer to this function, always it's gonna return that the error has occurred. So if you want to clear that error, you're gonna use this clearerr functions. So you can see the syntax of this clearerr function here. It takes the file pointer as the argument and it's not gonna return any values. So once we use this clearerr function, it's gonna clear all the error flags, and then we call this ferror function, it's gonna return 0 because the error flags have been cleared. So now we're gonna see how we can use these two functions in our program. So as I told you before, this ferror function is gonna return some integer value. We're gonna create a variable to store that value, and I'm gonna call it as status. Next, here for the demonstration purpose, we're gonna open a file in read mode and we try to write to that file, which is not possible. That's why it's gonna produce a write error. So first we need some data to write to the file. So I'm gonna create a character array, char. I'm gonna call it as data, and I'm gonna define a size of around 20. So the next thing we wanna do is we're gonna define a file pointer. So it's gonna be file fp. Now we're gonna open the file using the fopen function, fopen, and here for the demonstration purpose I'm gonna use the example.txt. Make a note that this example.txt is present where the error.c, which is the file we are working now, is present. And to this fopen function we need to pass the file name, which is example.txt, and remember that we're gonna open this file in read mode, so it's gonna be R. Now we're gonna check whether the file has been opened successfully or not. If fp not equal to null, which is gonna mean that file has been opened successfully, else we're gonna print some messages like unable to open the file. So I'm gonna use the put s function and I'm gonna say unable to open the file. If the file has been opened successfully, now we're gonna try to write to the file. So I'm gonna use fprintf function. It's gonna be fprintf. First we need to pass the file pointer, so it's gonna be fp. Then we need to write the format specifiers. I want to write a string value, so I'm gonna use the %s format specifier. Then we need to refer the data source, so it's gonna be data array. Here we're gonna initialize our data array, and I'm gonna store hello learner. So now I'm gonna use the ferror function to check whether the read or write error has occurred with this file pointer fp. And also don't make any spelling mistakes here, it should be fprintf. So it's gonna be ferror, and as a parameter we need to pass a file pointer, which is fp, and also I'm going to store the return value from this ferror function in our status variable. So it's going to be state is equal to ferror function with a file pointer. Now I'm going to use, okay, we're going to print out the value of this status variable, which is the return value from the ferror function, %d, then status. So now I'm going to use the if and else statements to print out the appropriate message whether any read or write error has been occurred or not. So if status equal to 0, if the return value from the ferror function is 0, which is gonna mean that there isn't any read or write error, we're gonna print that to the screen. I'm gonna use the put s function and I'm gonna say no read or write errors. Else, if the return value is a non-zero value, which is gonna mean that there was some read or write error has occurred, I'm gonna use the put s function to print that message to the screen. And we're gonna say read or write error has occurred. So let me add a new line here to make it pretty, and I'm gonna save it. Now we have opened the file in read mode and we are trying to write to the file, so it's gonna result in write error, and we are checking whether an error has occurred or not using this ferror function, and depending on the return value from this ferror function, we are printing out the appropriate message. So I'm gonna compile and run. So you can see here the return value from this ferror function is 32, and it said read or write error has occurred. That's because we have opened the file in the read mode and we are trying to write to the file. And when I open up my desktop and open up this example.txt, you can see here, since the write error has occurred, the string is not been written to this example.txt, so it's an empty file. So if I change this one to w, which is we are opening the file in the write mode and we are writing to the file, which is not gonna produce any read or write errors, and it's gonna produce the result as no read or write error has occurred. And you can see here the return value from the ferror function is 0. And if I open up my desktop and open up this example.txt, you can see here hello learner, which is a string we wanted to write to the file, and it's been written. So I'm gonna change this one to R, and now you can see here when the file has been opened in the read mode and when we try to write to the file, it produced the error. So if I use this clearerr function to clear the error flags, then this ferror function is gonna return a value of 0, indicating that no error flags has been set or no read or write error has been occurred. So to demonstrate the use of that clearerr function, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna copy these two statements and paste it here, and before that I'm gonna call the clearerr function, clearerr, then we need to pass the file pointer fp as a parameter. So what we are doing here is we are opening a file in read mode, and then we are trying to write to that file, which is gonna produce some write errors. The particular error flags has been set, and we are using this ferror function to check whether the read or write error has occurred or not, and then we are printing that return value here, and then we are calling the clearerr function, and then again we are calling the ferror function, and then printing the appropriate message. So what's gonna happen here is, so first when we open the file in read mode and when we try to write to the file, it's gonna produce the write error, so the error flags will be set. So here this ferror function is gonna return a non-zero value. We're just printing out to the screen that one, and then we are clearing that error flags, then we are calling the ferror function again. So what happens is here, since the error has been cleared, this ferror function is gonna return a value of 0, and it should execute the if part. So I'm gonna be compiling and run this one. So you can see here, so first the return value from the ferror function is 32, which is a non-zero value, because file has been opened in the read mode and we are trying to write to the file, and then we are using this clearerr function to clear the error flags. And when we call that ferror function again, so since the error flags has been cleared, it's gonna return a value of 0, and it just executed our if part. So this is it, guys. This is how you can use the ferror and clearerr functions. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I see you in the next tutorial.